Sanibona, ngaphambi singene kwivideo namuhla, ngithi angithathe lethuba ngibonge isupport nothando enikhombise lona lingaphezulu kokucabanga kwethu. Siyacela niqhubeke nisisupport njalo ngokubuka amavideo ethu, ungakhohlwa ukukhomenta, ushare, ulike. Siyafisa ukuzwa umbono wakho. Sicela ke singene kwivideo namuhla. Kunevideo engiyibonile la interesting kakhulu ebisho uNhlanhla Lux mayelana nodaba lwemikhukhu, informal settlement. Namalokishi ke, namalokishi. Ngase ngithi angiyenze ivideo plus izolo uminister we-informal settlement usisi lo mama lo Thembisa Melane bekathula ibudget yakhe. Ngase ngithi cha, ithuba elihle ukuthi asike sikhulume ngalolu daba ngoba lithinta i-housing, lithinta futhi indaba zemikhukhu le namalokishi. uNhlanhla Lux yena uthe
Cape Flats, if you have any solution to gangsterism there.
Yeah, so for me, the truth of the matter is the solution that this country needs is you need to collapse the infrastructure of colonization and infrastructure of apartheid. If we agree that labor camps, so we're Tomlazi, blah, blah, Alexandra, all these townships are labor camps, and you want to reverse what the apartheid has really done, you can't leave its infrastructure in place. Because that means...
My dad, Danny, also I need to give a shout out to my cousins as well. So
yeah.
Can't always speak about Soweto.
Yeah.
My dad, Danny, where I was born, I saw Sizweni.
Yeah.
Dango.
So we need to collapse those places. And for a small mind or an average mind, Lux cool, we must now collapse Soweto. But Soweto was built by a system that wanted to produce a certain type of black. So that infrastructure, you leave it in place, you are continuing to produce that certain type of black. So if you want the real results, I might not be speaking to colonizers, people with the mind of a colonizer. Majority of our people, we all belong to a group of colonized minds.
Correct.
So it's not easy to then understand issues of colonizers.
Yes.
Because you then say, far-fetched, incredible, mina like us, it's fine. I don't give a shit. Yeah, but if you're a colonizer and this resonates with you, you will then appreciate that we must then destroy everything that has to do with infrastructure, colonization, apartheid moving forward. Because then there are systems. Example, a computer. Let me use Windows 95 or XP. It requires hardware for it to operate. An operating system, software, can't operate in the sky just.
It needs hardware.
Yeah, it needs hardware. Our phones are hardware, Facebook is software.
Correct.
They come together, we've got Facebook. And the hardware then helps you access the software for you to do your things. Correct? So, when we speak of systematic continuation of systematic apartheid is normal physical, slavery is normal physical, is now systematic. What are you talking about? Where's the hardware for that? It's a system. It's an operating system. It operates. Listen to the English. It's simple. It's not me. Operating system, meaning it's a system that operates.
Sure.
Where is its hardware? It's in the infrastructure that was built.
That's correct.
The Sowetos, the Umlazis, the Matatenis, etc., etc. So we then need to collapse that if you want to get rid of everything that comes with it, so that you can honestly free your people. You look at Africa pre-contact. I don't want to make it racial. Pre-colonial contact.
Sure.
So Africa pre-colonial contact. How were we living? Why was it such an amazing continent? The richest person to ever walk the earth continues to be a person from Africa. Mansa continues to whip everybody. Even Elon doesn't come close to Mansa Musa, right? What was the infrastructure? Leave the person. Because the environment is the master of any mindset that can produce any person. We spoke that Burkina Faso, Tore did not create Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso created Tore.
Yabona uNhlanhla Lux kwesinye isikhathi uyaphuma eceleni kodwa kuloko ukhuluma iqiniso. Amalokishi okokuqala nje akhandwe njengama concentration camp. Uma ungawabheka wonke ane entrance eyi1 ne exit eyi1. Noma ngaphela kungangena endaweni eyi1 kodwa mangabe indawo zokungena kulelo lokishi zu3 noma zu4 uma uvalezwa na bonke abantu abalapha elokishini abakwazi ukuphuma. Akhandwe kanjalo. Okwesibili amalokishi wonke akhona phandle kwamalokishi njengocabanga iDeep Sloot neSoweto akunama firm eduze. Kodwa amalokishi wonke esikhathini esiningi akhandiwe kuba ilokishi kuba amafeme eceleni. Yingakho ethi ama-labor camps ngoba akhandwe ngendlela okungukuthi abantu kufuneka baphume la basebenze la. Then bese kuthi izinto eziningi nezinto ne-exposure lafuneka ibe khona ibe kude nabantu. Akhandwe kanjalo. Awenzekanga ngephutha. Angeke ngikucaphunele uLieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi njoba ekhuluma ngama-stats naneqhaza elibanjwa yimikhukhu uyena wakhuluma kanje.
So these are the stats and these are the biggest this eThekwini district Mgungundlovu, they account for the biggest number of informal settlements that we have. The biggest number of liquor outlets, biggest number of all the wrong things, unemployment, kids that are dropping out of school and they wander on the street and they commit crime. They are all within this Ethekwini district. So we need to identify what the problem is and how then do we fix it going forward.
Phambi kokuba ngimdedele akhulume ngama-stats, ngifisa uqaphela into ayishilo ukuthi indawo yaseThekwini njengoba inobugebengu obungaka budlanga kangaka iyona ndawo ena-informal settlements amaningi bese kuba nama-liquor outlets amaningi. Yazi mawungake ubheke nje mangabe umuntu waselokishini ama-tavern ngendlela amaningi ngayo. Umuntu ohlala esilungwini mangabe khona ibar mhlawumbe iyodwa noma amabili. Kodwa emalokishini akunqeni ukuthi istrata nestrata sibe ne-tavern noma uweqisa istrata esodwa noma ezimbili udibane ne-tavern. Igebengu eziningi iphuma emalokishini. Zimbala kabi igebengu eziphuma kuma-suburbs. Igebengu iphuma emalokishini. Ngizama ukufaka lento esho Nhlanhla la ukuthi lento yi-system eyayikhandiwe. Asiqhubeke.
Our perpetrators, Premier, we felt we must put this light so that we can identify what is our problem. Because we need to analyze what is the problem. The problem we have, you forgive me on this, but this is not me talking, these are the stats. We have a problem with the black man in South Africa. We have a serious problem. What we see here, we put the colors, the races of perpetrators that we've arrested. All the green, as you can see, almost everything is green here, which means almost everything is black that is committing crime. Out of total of 60,000 cases, criminals that were arrested between the age of 16 and 25 years old, 16 and 25 years old, we arrested 60,000 criminals in this past financial year, in this period of 5 years, I beg your pardon, not in financial year, this 5-year period that we are counting. Out of this number, 57,691 of them were black men. Out of 60,000, 57,000 of them are black men that we've arrested between the age of 16 and 25.
Njengoba i-crime rate ingaka ezesho ukuthi kubantwana ababushiwe abaneminyaka ebalelwa ku-16 ukuya ku-24 for the past 5 years bawu-60,000 abababophile. Asibabali laba abadubulile abebedubulana namaphoyisa abase beyadutshulwa bayashona. Kodwa bonke labantu baphuma emalokishini baphuma la kunemikhukhu khona eminingi. So sizomcaphuna manje ilokuzana inkulumo ebikhona eParliament. Kodwa singakafiki kwinkulumo ebiseParliament cela uzwe la.
You have the last election, you took the president to Alexander and he promised people 1 million houses.
It
Remember?
was never 1 million.
Sisazowakha izindlu ezilingana no1 million.
What it was what? 1,000?
No, it was never even 1,000.
What was
The
it?
1 million houses was in the figmentation of those who propagated.
How many did he promise?
1 million yezindlu zizowakhiwa lezo zindlu lapha Alexander Mamelane.
It was not 1 million. It was almost 100,000 houses that we
How
wanted.
many of those have you built since he made that promise in 2019 before the last election?
2019 was just 2 years ago.
Yeah, so?
Yes.
So you need more than 2 years to build a house?
No, we are building every day. As we
In
speak,
Alexander?
As we speak now, we are building
No, in
houses.
Alex.
We are building houses.
But in Alex?
Even in Alex, we are building houses.
No, there's not a single house that was built in Alex after that promise.
Alexandra le upresident ayithembise ukuthi bazokwakha izindlu ezo1 million iyimkhukhu. baya-understand abantu bakulumeni ukuthi fanele bashintshe isimo. Kodwa njengoba bengakashintshi nanamhlanje abantu base-Alex besahlala emkhukhwini, ibuhlungu lento ngoba ayikho into enhle, zincane izinto ezinhle. Abantu bacindezelwa nayi-environment. Environment okuyo inomthelela empilweni osuke uzoyiphila. Njengoba uNhlanhla kusumzwile ekuqaleni ethi lezi ndawo lezi zikhandela ukuthi zikucondition ukuthi uma umuntu omnyama, ngoba abantu abamnyama bahlala lezi ndawo ugcina ucabanga ngendlela ethize. Ayikho lento ayenzeki ngephutha. I-orchestrate-we kahle. Abantu abakwaziyo ukuthi funa bayenze kanjani. Asizwe ukuthi kuthiwe neParliament. Ngilungise la. Indawo yase-Alexandra ayinayo imikhukhu kuphela. Isiminyaminya informal noma kunezindlu kodwa isiminyaminya. Kwakungena town planner kwakhiwa leya ndawo, kwavele kwakhiwa nje.
Honorable Mpiti.
Thank you, House Chair. I'd like to begin my speech with a quote by President Cyril Ramaphosa, which was delivered at a keynote address in 2023 at a national dialogue on anti-corruption in Boksburg. I quote, "Corruption has wounded our democracy and has shaken people's faith in our institutions. If corruption is not arrested, the greatest damage will not be in the funds stolen, the jobs lost, or the services not delivered. The greatest damage will be in the belief in democracy itself," close quote. Today, we are forced to pause on these words and ask ourselves, how seriously can we take them as a nation? What will be clear at the end of this debate is that we are all going to pay. South Africans are going to pay if we don't attack the disease of corruption that is destroying the Department of Human Settlements. Today, we will surely hear from this House and from the members of this House that things are not that bad, that services are somewhat improving and people are somehow getting back to their dignity. But they won't tell that to the people of Nigel in Ekurhuleni, whose houses have been sold by municipal officials. They won't tell that to the people of Johannesburg in Soweto, whose title deeds are sitting in the municipality gathering dust. They won't tell that to the residents of Stillwater in Northern Cape, whose houses have collapsed just after 10 days of being built. They also won't tell that to the community of Joe Slovo settlement in the Eastern Cape, who have been flooded and will have to wait 3 months until they are able to get housed. They won't, House Chair, tell that to Ugogo, Gogsara, who's 78. She lives in a dilapidated Rondeville in Makadu, Limpopo, and I quote, and these are her words, she says, "One day this house will fall on me. Whenever I apply for an RDP house, they either do not respond or tell me stories." What answers, Minister, do you have for this lady? Towns are drowning before us. We are honestly not going to be able to stand here and lament victories that are non-existent and speak about tangible change that has not reached the people in the ground. People are dying without the promise of houses. People are dying waiting for government to deliver what they promised in 1994. And on the 8th of April, 2025, the DA wrote to the minister because it was first becoming clear that the department was in a freefall. The CEO of the National Home Builders Registration Council was suspended. The National Home Finance Corporation CEO is under investigation for misuse of funds. The Social Housing Regulatory Authority CEO and CFO have both been terminated. The Community Schemes Ombud Service Chief Ombud has resigned amid a corruption scandal. And of course, HDA is now under an investigation by the SIU. There is clearly a catastrophic collapse in this department. This dysfunction seems to be deepening under the watch of senior officials and political heads in the department. This situation is clearly impacting South Africans because this dysfunction is impeding the delivery of affordable housing in our country. But let's shift gears a little bit. On the 26th of August 2024, then Minister of Justice, Minister Simelane, was accused of having received a loan of 575,000 Rand from the Gundu Wealth Solutions while mayor of Polokwane. company directly linked to the unlawful investment of municipal funds into the now completely looted VBS Mutual Bank. You would think that the response to this that the president would have shown Minister Simelane the door. He did not. He asked for the report that he stayed with for 3 months, and even though the DA sustained pressure asking the president to act, he lacked courage to act and instead decided to dump Minister Simelane at Human Settlements, one of the most important departments for South Africans in our country. It seems that this president does not take an issue with the fact that the person accused of corruption sits in his cabinet and will have to look after a budget of 30 billion rand that is set aside for South Africans. The Democratic Alliance will always support the granting of funds to house the vulnerable. At the same time, fast-tracking jobs and growth to give many more South Africans the dignity of being able to buy and own their own houses. And although this budget and the department have many challenges, under normal circumstances, it would be supported. However, we sit with a minister who faces corruption allegations, who has not been accountable to the South African public, and it is because of this we struggle to support this particular budget. Yesterday, it was revealed that criminal investigation against the minister were underway by the South African Police Service following the charges that were laid by the DA. When the minister at the helm cannot be trusted with the scent of the taxpayer funds, how are we supposed to tell the public that their interests are cared for and protected? Minister Simelane cannot be trusted with a single rand, let alone 33 billion rand of this budget. As President Ramaphosa said, corruption has wounded our democracy and shaken people's faith in our institutions. If corruption is not arrested, and the greatest damage will not only be the funds that have been stolen or the jobs that have been lost.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Your time has now expired.
Damaged. I thank you.
Honourable Mhlongo. Is it Honourable Dlamini?
House Chair, please check your list of speakers, right? Is right there before you. The name is Honorable M. Dlamini. I don't know where you got Honorable Mhlongo from.
My apologies, Honourable Matias. I was informed that it would be Honourable Mhlongo, but I'm happy to welcome Honourable Dlamini to the podium.
You must apologize twice.
To the Commander-in-Chief of the EFF, President Julius Malema, ama-fighters onke, ngithi happy birthday month. Siyanimema nonke Khayelitsha Rugby Stadium, nani bayonibukela White House. So come all of you and celebrate with us. The Economic Freedom Fighters reject the budgets of human settlements, and not because we are extortionists like the DA, but because it is an empty promise wrapped in inflation and in false hope. Commander-in-Chief, the government has increased the budget allocation for human settlements this financial year, but an increase in nominal terms means nothing when it's swallowed by inflation. According to Stats SA, South Africa's consumer price inflation stood at 5.2% in May 2025. So unless we are willing to deceive ourselves, this increase is not real, it is cosmetic. It does not build more homes, it does not address the ever-growing backlog, and it certainly does not restore the dignity of our people. This budget fails the most basic test. It does not speak to the housing backlog, which now exceeds 2.3 million units. As admitted by the department itself, every year, government announces thousands of planned units, yet the streets of Diepsloot, Khayelitsha, and Marikana tell a different story. Over 13 million South Africans still live in informal settlements, backyards, and overcrowded RDP houses. This is not a technical failure. It is a political and moral one. It is a betrayal of the promises made in 1994 that every citizen would have access to adequate housing and basic services. 30 years later, that promise remains unfulfilled. The people are not asking for mansions, they are demanding dignity. We must also confront the failed experiment that is the National Housing Finance Corporation, established in 1996. It was supposed to be a transformative force in affordable housing finance. For years, we were told that the NHFC would be converted into a state-owned bank to challenge the tyranny of commercial banks and extend credit to the poor and working class. Instead of becoming a weapon of economic transformation, the NHFC remains toothless, offering loans to the middle class while the poor continue to be locked out of property ownership. Where is the legislation? Where is the vision? Once again, the state has promised revolution and delivered bureaucracy. Year after year, we watch in horror as municipalities, especially in the metros, return billions in unspent housing grants to the fiscus, while our people sleep in open veldt. In 2023-2024, over 1.4 billion in urban settlement development grants were returned. This happens because government has outsourced its key responsibilities. Consequently, consultants, many with links to the ruling elite, are paid millions while local government departments collapse. There is no accountability, there is no urgency, there is no leadership. This reliance on consultant is not accidental, it is deliberate. It allows those in government to hide behind PowerPoint presentations instead of facing the communities they've abandoned. It allows tenderpreneurs to profiteer from misery while the people wait in vain for houses that never come. In light of all of this, our people are left with no option but to occupy land. Land occupations is not a criminal act. They are acts of desperation and resistance. The EFF does not apologize for standing with the landless. As long as our people are denied land, we will continue to support land occupation programs, not for chaos, but for justice. The criminalization of land occupation is a crime in itself, a war against the poor disguised as law enforcement. What choice do people have when the eviction is the only response they receive from the state? The EFF's position is clear and consistent with our 7 non-negotiable cardinal pillars specifically. The state must expropriate land to make space for housing development and to guarantee free quality housing for all, prioritizing women, youth, and the poor. There must be a state-led construction company, eliminating the reliance of private developers and consultants. We call for the People's Housing Brigade, led by the state, to build homes using local labor and materials. This would stimulate local economies, provide skills to the youth, and restore community agency in development. We demand the nationalization of urban land and an end to the market-driven logic of housing delivery. Let us also not forget the environmental injustice embedded in human settlements planning. Too often, the poor are pushed to urban periphery, far from jobs, schools, and transport. The spatial apartheid remains intact. We need integrated, mixed-income developments in well-located areas, not ghettos of poverty on the edge of society. We need housing policies rooted in spatial justice, not convenience for capital. We reject a system that budgets for poverty instead of transformation. We reject a system where the rich live in suburbs and the poor in sinkholes of despair. We demand a revolution in human settlements rooted in justice, dignity, and liberation of land. The EFF does not support this budget. We support the people, and we will continue to fight for housing as a human right and not a market commodity. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Khadebe.
Thank you, House Chairperson. At the heart of a just and dignified society lies access to adequate shelter. For millions of South Africans, however, the promise of a decent home remains painfully out of reach. The IFP acknowledges the strategic importance of this budget vote in addressing the legacy of apartheid, spatial planning, deepening urban inequality, and the housing backlog that continues to exceed 2 million units. We take note of the allocation of 37.6 billion to the Department of Human Settlements for the 2025-26 financial year. While this amount represents a commitment to housing development and upgrading of informal settlements, we remain concerned by the slow pace of delivery and persistent underspending in key programs, particularly the Urban Settlement Development Grant and the Informal Settlements Upgrading Program. We are further disheartened by continued systemic inefficiencies in the Housing Development Agency and underperformance in provinces such as Eastern Cape and Northwest, which remain among the worst performing in utilizing allocated funds. We strongly support the upgrading of informal settlements and applaud the department's aim to reach 1,500 informal settlements by 2030. However, we urge the Minister to ensure that community participation is not merely a tick box exercise, but a central tenet of the upgrading process. Communities must be involved from planning to implementation. We also emphasize the need for integrated development. A house without access to water, electricity, sanitation, and transport remains a symbol of exclusion. Human settlements cannot be treated in isolation. Coordination with the Department of Water and Sanitation, cooperative governance, and transport is critical to ensure sustainable communities, not just structures. Moreover, we remain a champion of traditional leadership and call for the department to urgently strengthen partnerships with traditional authorities. Rural housing delivery has been slow, fragmented, and poorly aligned with local dynamics. As custodians of land and community development in many rural areas, Amakosi must be brought into planning frameworks, not left on the margin. Lastly, the title deed backlog, particularly in Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal, is deeply troubling. Without security of tenure, many beneficiaries are unable to access loans, transfer property, or leave a legacy for future generations. We call for a dedicated task team with clear timelines and accountability to fast-track the issuing of outstanding title deeds. In conclusion, the IFP supports the allocation of this budget vote in principle, but urges the Minister to ensure value for money, improved project management, and stronger intergovernmental coordination. Our people do not live in documents, reports, or frameworks. They live in communities, often in shacks, in the cold and the rain, waiting for dignity that has been too long deferred. Let us ensure the budget becomes not only an instrument of expenditure, but a tool of transformation. I thank you.
Thank you. Is there a speaker on behalf of the PA in this debate? Then I recognize the Honourable van Staden. I've not been informed that they donated it.
Thank you, House Chairperson. House Chairperson, the SIU's investigation into dodgy transactions valued at 3.1 billion rand approved by the Housing Development Agency is welcomed, but the involvement of the human settlement departments from the Eastern Cape, Western Cape, Free State, Gauteng, KZN, Mpumalanga, Northwest, and the Northern Cape is of huge concern. The SIU's investigation into any alleged sheriff's maladministration, improper or unlawful conduct by the employees, unlawful expenditure of public funds, and offences that have been committed in violation of the Prevention and Combating of Corrupt Activities Act from 2016 to 2025 cannot be ignored, and we hope that this investigation will bring an end to these corrupt activities. Die behuisingsagterstand en die lewering van titelaktes bly maar 'n kopseer te wees vir hierdie departement en die VF+ het verneem van die adjunkminister se besoek aan die Knysna munisipaliteit waar hierdie munisipaliteit met 'n geraamde behuisingsagterstand sit van sowat 9,800 eenhede en wat jaarliks groei teen 'n koers van ongeveer 3%. Dan het ons ook verneem van 2 voormalige Oos-Kaapse munisipale amptenare wat gevonnis is vir bedrog nadat hulle in Mei 2017 'n laagkoste huis teen R150,000 aan 'n vrou verkoop het. Hierdie is 'n nuwe seldsame gebeurtenis wat plaasvind nie. En sedert 94 hoor ons gereeld van mense wat hulle magte as amptenare of as politici misbruik om laagkoste behuising wat aan armes toegeken moet word sommer net te verkoop. Ons sal by 'n punt moet kom waar hierdie ewel uitgeroei moet word. Ons sal by 'n punt moet kom waar hierdie agterstand in die uitreiking van 2 miljoen titelaktes behoorlik aangespreek moet word en nie net uitgereik word kort voor verkiesings om stemme te probeer werf nie. Die chaos wat sedert 1994 heers met betrekking tot die waglyste vir behuising moet ook dringend opgelos word. Ons kan sekerlik nie langer toelaat dat mense vir jare en jare op die waglys is en dan skielik moet verneem dat iemand anders wat nog nooit op 'n waglys was nie, skielik 'n huis of titelakte ontvang het. If urgent attention is not given to eradicate these problems, then the medium-term development plan for 24 to 2029 will not be achieved. The reclaiming of hijacked buildings for public use must be a priority in order to provide housing to the poor. Instead of allowing a building to stand empty and being hijacked, it is rather be used for alternative housing. Johannesburg, Pretoria, and Durban should be a priority in this regard. The Freedom Front Plus supports the committee's recommendation that a detailed report must be submitted on the issuance of title deeds and to get a quick response to the resolution of a pre-1994 housing stock that was occupied either on a rental basis or built with cost to the owner. The implementing of binding service level agreements with municipalities and other stakeholders and the incorporating penalties for non-performance are hereby welcomed. Die VF+ sou graag wil sien dat provinsiale en munisipale amptenare se magte ingeperk word wanneer dit kom by die hantering en samestelling van behuisingswaglyste en wanneer dit kom by die toekenning van hierdie huise. I thank you, Chairperson.
Dankie. The next speaker is the Honourable Kobe.
Thank you, House Chair. As Action SA Chair, we rise in this debate not to play politics, but to assert a principle. The right to housing is a constitutional imperative, not a favor that's dispersed by the state. We reject Budget Vote 33, not because of who occupies office of minister, though it is deeply concerning that the Honourable Minister Simelane is under investigation for a questionable VBS-related loan, but because the budget fails to honor the dignity of the millions of South Africans that are still waiting for a place to call home. Honourable members, this report makes for sobering reading. It admits in black and white that none of the department's 5 core programs have received real increases. In fact, after inflation, all of them decline. Program 3, tasked with upgrading informal settlements, suffers a real cut of 12.6%. How do we claim to support the poorest of the poor when we slash the very grant that is meant to serve them? We see similar declines across other programs, whether it's affordable housing, social rental, or emergency shelter. Every line item tells the same story, a slow retreat from the constitutional promise of adequate housing for all. House Chair, the committee makes important recommendations, and we as Action SA really do commend these members who have pushed for them. But what confidence can the public have in recommendations without will or resources to implement them? Action SA therefore wishes to place on the following principles, objections on record. 1, consequence management. Year after year, provinces and metros fail to spend their housing grants. Billions are returned to National Treasury while people sleep in shacks. The committee calls for consequence management, but we've heard this before. Where are the penalties and where is the accountability? Title deed backlog. The backlog exceeds 2 million, yet instead of accelerating issuance, the committee asks for more reports and updates. As Action SA, we call for a dedicated unit within the department to unblock title deed crisis with measurable quarterly targets. Vacancies and capacity. Critical posts remain vacant. The NHBRC is certifying substandard housing while their contractors are exempted from CIDB regulations. How do we avoid having another George collapse with these kinds of exemptions? Without a binding performance management framework across all entities, poor leadership will continue to sabotage delivery. Community participation. The recommendation to standardize community consultation is welcome, but without binding service level agreements between the department and municipalities, project delays and protest-driven halts will persist. And finally, budget justice. The budget reflects political choices, and a budget that delivers a real cut to human settlements in the face of a housing crisis is a political choice, and it is the wrong one. As Action SA, we propose a new model of diversified, sustainable funding for entities with direct access to national resources to break dependence on politically distorted provincial allocation. Honorable members, we note the recommendations to enhance audit processes, improve data systems, and create a housing delivery dashboard. These are very commendable steps, but unless the government treats the housing crisis with the urgency it deserves, dashboards will continue to track our collective failure. South Africans deserve more than underfunded mandates and unfunded promises. They deserve dignity, security, and a home. For this reason, and in the name of millions that are still waiting, Action SA cannot support this budget. Thank you.
Thank you. I now recognize the Honourable the Deputy Minister of Human Settlements.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson. Honorable Minister of Human Settlements, Ms. Thembisi Melane, the Chair of the Portfolio Committee, Honorable Knox Siabi, members of the Portfolio Committee, allow me to stand on the protocols that are established. Honorable Chairperson, the First Minister of Housing in a democratic South Africa, Honorable Joe Slovo said, I quote, "It is not enough to remove the shuttles. We must build new structures," close quote. House Chairperson, these words spoken by the late Joe Slovo are not just a reminder of our past, they are a directive for our present. As the First Minister of Housing in 1994, Joe Slovo understood the profundity of the task ahead, that freedom without shelter is incomplete, and that dignity cannot thrive without a home. Honorable members, on the 26th of June 2025, we commemorated the 70 years of the Freedom Charter, a historic document adopted in Kliptown, Soweto, which has since shaped our democratic dispensation. The Freedom Charter boldly declared there shall be houses, security, and comfort. It is against this background that the ANC-led democratic government has steered the charge to house over 4 million South Africans since 1994. House Chairperson, enshrined in our progressive constitution, section 26, is the right to access adequate housing. The Freedom Charter and the Constitution lay the moral foundation for our hard-earned democracy. Our work in human settlements is not just about infrastructure, it is about bringing dignity to the people through housing. It is about correcting spatial injustice, advancing equity, and building a South Africa that truly belongs to all who live in it. We gather today with our minds still recovering from the supervened for what supervened the Eastern Cape province in June 2025. Lives were lost, families were displaced. Once again, this revealed the scale of work ahead of us to provide adequate shelter to those in need. We acknowledge the intergovernmental efforts deployed in Mthatha and Butterworth, and further thank the various first responders and stakeholders who lend a helping hand to the families. We wish to extend a special appreciation to Gift of the Givers, who provided relief to the victims and have consistently showed up for our people. A few days ago, the Gift of the Givers also showed up in Khayelitsha to provide relief to flood victims. Honorable House Chairperson, we are reminded that limited resources at our disposal, we can fully deliver on our constitutional mandate through meaningful collaborations, partnerships with businesses, public-private partnerships, communities, and non-governmental organizations. Our last few months, we traveled across the country, handing over houses and title deeds, affirming our call of housing the nation, a clarion call the progressive democratic government has made over the last 31 years. The Department of Human Settlements has registered great strides in providing decent shelter to senior citizens, persons with disability, women, child-headed homes, and military veterans. We commend provinces that have prioritized these vulnerable groups. The stories on the ground are loud and clear. Honorable members, people of South Africa have been waiting to be decently housed for many years. The joy that we are met with when we are handing over these title deeds and houses is unmatched. We are met with tears of joy, fulfilled dreams, and renewed hope in a caring government that serves the people. Military veterans remains a priority in our housing program, and many have already received houses. We recognize them for their service to our country. However, challenges such as outdated or inaccurate beneficiary lists, untraceable applicants, and non-qualifying individuals continues to hinder the progress. The Department of Human Settlements and the Department of Military Veterans are working together to verify and update the database to ensure that all qualifying veterans are provided with dignified houses. Honorable members, we recognize the struggles of the missing middle. In 2024, we shared insights from the Home Loan and Mortgage Disclosure Act report, covering the period of 2018 to 2022. It revealed barriers that continue to hinder access to home ownership. These include delays due to incomplete documentation, confusion around eligibility, criteria, and long waiting period for subsidy payments. Most concerning was the limited access to bonds for those earning below 10,000 rands per month, even when supported with the first home finance subsidy. To respond to these challenges, over 2024 to 2029 MTDP, we will disburse 140,000 subsidies and loans through first home finance. We call on the private sector, especially financial institutions, to partner with us in providing more affordable housing stock near economic and social amenities. This will go a long way in undoing apartheid spatial planning and responding to President Cyril Ramaphosa's call to tackle inequality, and housing programs must also serve as economic catalyst, as the President said. In the 2024-2025 financial year, 463 billion in contracts were awarded to enterprises owned by women, youth, and other vulnerable groups. While we welcome this progress, we acknowledge that the participation of persons with disabilities and military veterans remains low. Provinces and entities are now required to report on inclusive procurement and implement concrete transformation measures. We are driving bold change through PPRA. The establishment of Property Sector Transformation Fund will support Black-owned businesses with market access. Strategic partnerships with Remax and Roson are creating opportunities for emerging Black estate agents and entrepreneurs. In April 2024, Roson launched the Roson Transformation Franchise Program, which has already established 6 new Black-owned franchises and created 47 jobs. We also commend the Community Scheme Ombud Services for transforming from a fully grant-dependent body to a self-sustaining regulator. CSOS is currently developing a national database of community schemes and aims to register 20,000 new schemes this year. The amendment of its founding legislation is underway to address previous gaps and further support transparency, education, and enforcement. In October 2024, we launched a national research strategy. It is our belief that informed decisions must be guided by empirical evidence. This year, we will publish 2 critical reports, one on affordable rental and social housing, and another on funding mechanisms for human settlements. These reports will shape future policy from inner city renewal to the use of alternative building technologies. Honorable members, during the Youth Month commemoration, we reiterated our commitment towards tackling youth unemployment through targeted programs. The department will continue to implement the internship program and award bursaries to deserving students. We will also engage SETAs to secure support for learnership and skills development. Honorable members, as we celebrate the life and legacy of former President Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela this month, we are reminded of his devotion to the power and the potential of young people. As he said, open quote, "I admire young people who are concerned with the affairs of their community and nation. With such youth, we can be sure that the ideas we celebrate today will never be extinguished," close quote. President Mandela recognized that young people are not only capable, they are courageous. Every generation has risen to the occasion. Honorable members, we recommend that the Portfolio Committee on Human Settlements and Parliament accept our budget for the plight of the people of South Africa at large, not individuals. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. The next speaker will be the Honorable Measure. Thank you, Chairperson. Honorable members, the 2025-26 Human Settlement Budget is tabled against the backdrop of persistent housing backlogs, deepening spatial inequality, and mounting pressure on urban infrastructure. While the department has made some strides in delivery, particularly through the Human Settlements Development Grant, concerns remain about the pace, equity, and inclusivity of housing provision. A critical area of concern is the Special Housing Needs Program. Despite the Special Housing Needs Policy being approved in October 2022, no formal announcement has been made by the Minister in this regard, with the result that few, if any, of welfare organizations are aware of this program. It was specially developed to assist with the housing of vulnerable groups, such as people with disabilities, survivors of domestic violence, vulnerable children, elderly people, and the homeless. Those sounding the alarm where the state slumbers are frontline service providers. Upon inquiry, they say there are provincial departments of social development, health, and even human settlement that appear to be unaware of the Special Housing Needs Program. This is totally unacceptable. It is now almost 3 years since this program was approved, and they have not yet heard of a single SHN project that has been approved, despite its policy framework being drafted as far back as 2015. It remains wallowing and unapproved at national level. This is a shocking and unacceptable lack of political will to help our vulnerable people. The ACDP has been championing the cause of the most vulnerable people for well over a decade. In all these years, the ACDP has seen the greatest impediment being the persistent lack of interdepartmental coordination between human settlements, social development, and health. This has left groups such as people with disabilities, survivors of domestic violence, vulnerable children, and elderly people, and more, without a coherent and forcible housing policy. While the housing needs grant has been introduced to support implementation, its impact is constrained by the absence of a formalized policy and clear delivery programs. It is imperative that we achieve finalization and adoption of the SHN policy. Ring-fenced funding is needed for special needs housing and transparent reporting on service delivery. The ACDP will definitely not support this budget vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Meshwe. The next speaker will be Muchabiseki Ghana.
I will debate the budget and resist the temptation to debate or play the woman. As Rising Zans, we are building a safe, prosperous, equal, and united South Africa, which is why today I rise on behalf of South Africans who rightfully demand access to affordable and adequate homes to own and to rent. South Africans expect this budget to be effectively allocated and used to ensure that these demands are met. We know that the department's allocated budget is not nearly enough to meet the housing needs in our country. This makes it all important that no cent goes to waste. Nevertheless, we also know that this department has been shackled by unfinished projects and deep corruption, with many officials stealing the money that is meant to build homes. Honorable members, climate change is no longer a faraway possibility. It is here, and its floods, storms, and wildfires are wreaking havoc on our communities. The provision of fast and proper emergency housing is now of vital importance and should be one of the department's main priorities. At the same time, the department must act swiftly to prevent and stop the hyenas within its ranks to prey on the funds allocated to rebuilding communities. The money must be used effectively, and this department must be proactive in verifying that its funds is spent as it should be. Finally, you cannot only focus on the development of more housing. You must also safeguard the existing housing stock. South Africans are being priced out of their homes and communities by the rapid growth in short-term rentals. We welcome tourists. However, the exponential increase in digital nomads and foreign nationals buying up properties with the sole purpose of turning them into short-term rentals is unacceptable. This drives up housing prices and leaves South Africans who have worked for years to afford to buy a home out in the cold. You must urgently, Minister, investigate this issue and employ all available legislative, regulatory, and policy interventions to prevent this monopolization of housing by an elite few, many of whom are not even based in South Africa. You must take urgent action to lower and control the cost of buying and renting homes in South Africa. Let us all rise to ensure that every South African have a better place to call home.
Thanks, Honorable Ghana. The next speaker, you are not going to do that, Honorable Ghana. Not here. The next speaker will be Honorable Tazo Webster.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I think it's first important to note that today's debate is not just about line items on a budget. This is a department that we always say is about a portfolio or about a responsibility to restore the dignity of South Africans, and it continues to fail the people that it claims to serve. The Department of Human Settlements has been allocated 37.1 billion for the 2025 and 2026 financial year. Yet, as it stands across the country, from Gauteng to Eastern Cape, families still live in shacks, in overcrowded backrooms or in RDP houses that are cracking at the foundation. And in Gauteng alone, the housing backlog exceeds 1 million people. And this is not necessarily just because of a lack of funding. It's because of broken systems, it's because of unchecked corruption, and it's because of political protection for underperforming officials. The portfolio committee itself raised various issues and concerns. One of those was the underspending on informal settlement upgrades, failure to meet title deed delivery targets, and irregular and fruitless expenditure in several provinces with little or no consequence management. Meanwhile, illegal sales of RDP houses continue, particularly in Gauteng, often with the complicity of local officials. We have construction mafias that threaten contractors and communities, that hijack projects and delay delivery while the department remains passive. And where homes are delivered, they are often inferior in quality because they are built by politically connected contractors who cut corners with no oversight. So, Chairperson, this is not just a delivery crisis, it's actually a crisis of leadership and of trust. And when the department that's charged with upholding dignity becomes a playground for patronage, the impact is not just financial, it's human. I said at the start of my debate that this is a department that is charged with restoring dignity to South Africans across the country. So this is a department that does not necessarily need more money to reform. It needs a reset in culture, leadership, and accountability. As Build One South Africa, we've made it clear that the budget cannot be used as a poker chip in the political game of bluffing as is being done by our colleagues in the DA. But it's equally important to be honest about who becomes trusted with public funds. My colleagues are saying extortionists. You cannot restore the public's trust with leadership that goes unchecked when they are compromised. So while we lend our support to this budget, we call for a full audit of housing allocations, of prosecutions of ghost contractors and officials, scaled up delivery, and a firm strategy to neutralize the construction budget because our people do deserve dignity. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Member. The next speaker is the Deputy Minister of Social Development.
Honorable House Chair, Jama has taken the first steps to expropriate with no compensation that part of the land that farm dwellers have been living for generations. So, Minister, that means we're making your job easy so that we can achieve, we can reduce homelessness in the country. Let me acknowledge Al-Jama's new Member of Parliament, Honorable Imran BOSA. We gave Parliament Advocate Amina Sali, and watch the space for Honorable Imran BOSA. Also, she, Comrade Sotasi, who's in the forefront of fighting homelessness in the city of Cape Town. This constitution clearly states that adequate housing must be provided, but Reitewag social housing scheme eviction in Cape Town, they are forced to live in informal settlements by the DA-run City of Cape Town municipality. Last Thursday, activists of the Women on Farms project marched on the Drakensberg municipality, again run by the DA, who settled them in plankies. You don't want to go to plankies. It's a concentration camp. It is terrible. And that's what the DA likes to do in municipalities which they run. The DA should not be allowed to budget for informal living, which creates squatter camps. They budget for oppression. How can you allow that? These are just two of the DA-run municipalities which create informal settlements with zinc sacks. You must go and visit Blikkiesdorp in Cape Town. The Minister of Human Settlements, Al-Jama, applauds you for building thousands of top structures and decent projects for rental housing. We applaud you and your Director General and your team for the excellent work they are doing. So that's why our Jama will support this budget. The DA creates unhealthy and unsafe living conditions. The Minister creates decent housing. The evidence is there. There are clear constitutional legislative responsibilities for us as state representatives to uphold principles of equality, dignity, and substantive housing. Those honorable members will vote against this budget. That's an anti-revolutionary vote. You must be ashamed of yourself. Thank you very much, Honorable House Chair.
Thank you. Order, honorable members. Honorable members, order. The next speaker will be the honorable Frenchman.
Thank you, Chairperson, and greetings to all present, all protocol observed. Chairperson, this report outlines new proposed plans for human settlements, as well as we all know, human settlements has been struggling department from low quality houses being built to fraud and corruption within the department. What this report does not report on is how it's going to retrieve the monies lost through fruitless and wasteful expenditure and fraud and corruption. On numerous occasions in this committee, I have mentioned the arrests that has happened within the city of Cape Town relating to fraud and corruption, and have since not had any feedback from the department regarding this. And through you, Chairperson, I would like to ask the Minister the following. For the past 7 or 8 years, the National Coloured Congress has been raising the alarm on the neglected CRUs on the Cape Flats. It has made national news because of the arrests that I mentioned, and also the murder of one of the City of Cape Town's officials, Alistair Stanbull, who was one of the accused. This case is still ongoing. Now, Minister, 600 million rand was allocated to fix the staircases of these CRUs. The contract was illegally cancelled and the money was supposedly relocated to the budget, according to Mayor Jordan Lewis. We later found out that this is not true. Minister, there is a forensic report that the city manager has promised to release to the public in 2018, but I stand corrected on the timeline of this. Up until now, he hasn't done so. So, Minister, this is 600 million rand of taxpayers' monies. So I'm asking you now to please get that report for the committee. I also ask that yourself and the committee go out to these sites and see for yourself the condition those staircases are in. We cannot allow taxpayers' money to be squandered and have no one to take accountability. It is the duty of the department to ensure that taxpayers' monies are recovered. The City of Cape Town is only one example of mismanaged funds. As the committee, we have come across the same in other provinces we had oversight. Minister, Chairperson, although I understand the need to upgrade informal settlement, but please just hear me out. We have to ask, will this be cost effective for the department? With fires and floods getting worse each year and the location of most of the informal settlements, it will cost the department much more than the allocated budget, especially if these upgrades are going to happen on privately owned land with the intention of relocation. The NCC recommends that the department should provide a clear statement on the lawfulness of providing fixed water services and other infrastructure to permanent or semi-permanent informal settlements located on private land, but also make the land available and spend
your time has expired.
Budget on servicing that land. Thank you.
Order, honorable members. Honorable members, order. The next speaker is Honorable Mahlatsi.
Thank you, Chairperson. Khotso, Maafrika. The UAT rise grounded in the timeless value of Pan-African and enduring spirit of Ubuntu. I am because we are. These are not just philosophies. They are principles that guide every line item of this nation's budget. And so, with great humility and clear conscience, I stand here to oppose Vote 33. This bill, as it stands, failed to embody the transformative justice of our people that our people deserve. We are appropriating billions of rands under Vote 33, yet too little is visible directed towards real, integrated, and pro-poor housing development. In township after township, in rural, urban fringe, and informal settlement, our people still live in shacks, back rooms, overcrowded homes, without land, dignity, or hope. Yet this bill lacks concrete, targeted provisions to uplift those historical dispossessed by colonialism, apartheid, and yes, the post-apartheid urban development model itself. Ubuntu principle teaches us that no one lives in dignity until we all do. It is not enough to build few units and call it transformation. Where are the clear allocations for community-driven development? Where is the budget for site and service programs, for tenant security, and for integration of spatial exclusive African families into the heartbeat of the city? This bill also falls short on accountability and transparency. There is little details on conditional grants to provinces and municipalities. No clear framework to ensure that funding reaches informal settlements, backward dwellers, the young first-time homeowners. Without strict, transparent oversight and community-based monitoring, billions will continue to disappear in the bureaucracy and mismanagement, all while poor queues for houses they may never receive. We must not simply rubber stamp budget. We must ask, are these appropriation healing wounds of the history? Are they building African unity, restoring African dignity, and advancing African development? Let us reallocate these funds towards pro-poor housing, land redistribution, spatial justice, and urban equity. Let us build not only houses, but build community rooted in justice, access, and belonging. For these reasons, and in the name of African unity and shared humanity.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member.
Kani mambo.
The next speaker will be Honorable Paul.
Honorable Speaker, we as the DA are the anchor of government of national unity, holders of communities, of opportunity, and of accountability. Our Constitution enshrines the right to access adequate housing, as everyone in our country deserves a place to call home. The Department of Human Settlement has an immense ethical and moral responsibility. Unfortunately, however, the department is led by a minister who has displayed the opposite of ethics and morals. If you are accused of co-looting the VPS Bank, you should be in a dock before a judge and not a member of the August House, let alone being entrusted with 33 billion of taxpayers' funds to house the most vulnerable. The minister has to be in a post, not been in a post long, after being moved from justice portfolio to human settlements. As one of our most unequal countries on earth, with millions of South Africans being without the dignity of calling a place home, it says a lot to the minister accused of funneling pensioners' money through a coffee shop. Over multiple oversights visits, it has become evident that this department suffers from chronic weaknesses in intergovernmental coordination, project planning, and accountability. This misalignment between spheres of government results in duplicated efforts, stalled projects, and wasted funds. In Free State, for example, substandard phase 1 projects have consumed budgets far in excess of original allocations, with nothing but poorly built structures to show for it. According to the 2025 E&E, nearly 90% of the department's 101.2 billion medium-term budget is transferred to provinces and municipalities. Yet, poor planning, delayed procurement, and a shortage of engineering and technical capacity mean that service delivery is not corresponding with the scale of funding. Instead of delivering the promised plus minus 86,000 subsidized houses, we see underspending, irregular expenditure, and communities still waiting in informal settlements. This year budget has downgraded expectations. The number of fully subsidized houses to be delivered in 25-26 drops to plus minus 29,000 from over 41,000 in the previous year. That is nearly a 30% reduction. At the same time, the title deed backlog, which is a crucial aspect of security of tenure, remains unresolved. Even though the target for new title deed registrations has increased to over 23,000, this is just a fraction of the housing stock built since 2014. Speaker, this department's dysfunction starts from the minister's doorstep, where delivery was stalled and broken entities are in further disrepair. We have seen in the HBRC shrinking inspection targets despite widespread reports of poor workmanship in the subsidy housing sector. We have seen in the NHFC where first home finance approvals are plummeting, restricting access to affordable housing at a time when inclusion should be expanding. Extra recurring failures in compliance and governance reflect weak enforcement systems and delayed legislative reform. And at the HDA, a troubling reliance on consultants and concerns over brand protection raise further questions about internal capability. Worryingly, the informal settlements upgrading grant to the provinces has been cut drastically, decreasing by 33.1% over the medium term. While the department claims this is due to budget cuts, it's a shortfall that can be addressed through targeting irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure. I certainly would not bet any money on this minister doing anything to clean up shop. If allegations of corruption are true, she would rather buy coffee shops. She may in fact be planning of converting the Department of Human Settlements for a grand relaunch of a coffee enterprise. We need a professionalized human department sector, one that values engineers, planners, and auditors as much as it values slogans, one that links housing delivery with economic growth and job creation, not just outputs on a spreadsheet. Yes, this budget faces serious difficulties, but as Honorable Mapiti points out, if all else were equal, this budget will be supported. The allocation of 1.6 billion to emergency housing in times of disaster is a welcome addition. And a greater support to first-time buyers will go a long way building opportunity for new homeowners to enter the market and build new lives. But we cannot trust the precious taxpayer money allocated to this budget will be implemented or cared for by this compromised minister, who was only redeployed to this department under the darkest clouds. She simply cannot be trusted with 33 billion of hard-earned taxpayer funds meant to house the vulnerable, when her failures are so stark and so many. Speaker, we as the DA will not rest until the Department of Human Settlements delivers real houses with real dignity for real people, including being served under the right leadership. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, honorable members. Honorable members, order. The next speaker will be Honorable Ditebe. Honorable members, I'm informed that Honorable Siabi left a minute and is donating it to Honorable Detail. He will have 11 minutes.
No,
Honorable Chairperson.
no. Honorable Chair, on a point of order. On a point of order. Which rule are you based that decision on? There's no such a rule. There's no such a rule.
Can you switch off that mic?
I'm saying there's no such a rule for that.
Can you switch off the mic? I heard you. So that I
Yeah,
open
you
mic.
can't make such
Honorable
rules as you
Matthias,
go. There's no such a rule.
Honorable Matthias, can you switch off that mic? Honorable members, this is time allocated to a political party. And this is allowed. It's not the first time. Can you proceed, Honorable Diterbe?
Which rule? Refer us to a rule.
Honorable Diterbe?
You can't make rules as you go along.
Honorable Matthias. Honorable Matthias. Please don't do that again. Please don't do that again. Proceed, Honorable Diterbe.
Chairperson, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Minister Smilane, Honorable Deputy Minister Mahambeshala, Honorable members, Chair of our committee. Perhaps at this point we should ask, what is he afraid of? Chairperson, ke ema mona go tshegetsa ditekanyetsokabo tsa lefapha tsa phumantsho ya bodulo e leng human settlements tsa lenaane la bo30 lebitsong la maAfrika Borwa a dulang dibakeng tseo di ntseng di fetolwa go ba tse molaong. Ke bua ka baai ba 66, 67, 68 ka Starley School site Kutlwanong Matjhabeng, Freedom Square Mangaung, Botshabelo West Mangaung, Gugulethu Thabong Matjhabeng, Slovo Park Gauteng, Banana City in Durban, le ba dulang tlasa marokgo le hohle mo ba ipeileng teng Cape Town le ba bang bao ANC e etsang ho matleng ho ntlafatsa maphelo a bona. On the 26th of June last Thursday, we celebrated the 70th anniversary of the adoption of the Freedom Charter, a clarion call and vision that gave us a sense of not only what our future nation state would look like, but our nation too, as expressly stated in its preamble that, I quote, our people have been robbed of their birthright to land, liberty and peace by a form of government founded on injustice and inequality, that our country will never be prosperous or free until all our people live in brotherhood, enjoying equal rights and opportunities, close quote. The 3,000 delegates to the Congress of the People in 1955 demanded that people, quote, live where they choose, be decently housed, and that slums be demolished and new suburbs built where they all have transport, roads, lighting, playing fields, crashes, and social centers, close quote, in order to, quote, bring up their families in comfort and security, close quote. Today, we stand here as the ANC and urge all and sundry who love their people and country to unequivocally support this budget, because to do otherwise means delaying the eradication of slums and informal settlements for the majority who are Black and still suffer from the legacy of decades and centuries of forced removals and land dispossession. And above all, to not support this budget will worsen their asset poverty and state of inequality. Have you heard, EFF, MKP? We dare not linger. We stand here with a great sense of pride.
Order, Chair. The honorable member is raising.
Honorable Diterbe, can you sit down?
Order, Chairperson. The honorable member is raising fingers.
Can you?
Your fingers are not nice.
Can you switch off?
Your fingers are not nice.
Can you switch off the mic? Honorable members, honorable members, honorable members, order. Order, honorable members. Honorable members, these microphones, when you open there, I can't respond to you here. that disturbs how I must chair the meeting. So don't, you know the rules don't allow you to just switch on the mic. You must raise up your hand. And it's a warning to you, Honorable Member. Honorable Matthias, Honorable Matthias, I have warned you. I'm warning you for the second time. Honorable Tutebe, can you proceed?
We stand here with a great sense of pride and gratitude to President Tambo, who laid a solid foundation for us to reach this glorious end by laying a firm foundation for the architecture of South Africa's constitution, as captured in this book. And of course, that constitution in section 26(1)(3) guarantees all the right to have proper housing. Honorable Chairperson, colonialism and apartheid have exacted indelible scars on the fabric of lives of our people in villages, towns, and cities. And despite attempts to resist spatial justice and integration, we owe it to the volunteers and crafters of the vision of a non-racial future of the Congress of the People of 1955 and the beneficiaries of our current constitutional order to stay engaged with all our people and actively facilitate their freedom to live where they choose and rights as enshrined in Section 26 of the Constitution. We applaud the strides of the Department of Human Settlements is making to upgrade informal settlements despite a severely constrained fiscal space. We commend the 21 billion for the next 3 years to upgrade informal settlements. And this year's budget of 8 billion rand allocated to provinces, metros, and various sub-programs. With this year's allocation, the Department of Human Settlements, together with 9 provinces and the 8 metros, will see the upgrading of 63 informal settlements to phase 1, and another 104 and 55 informal settlements upgraded to phase 2 and 3 respectively. This paves the way to amenities such as electricity, roads, refuse collection, water, sanitation, and those that once were asset poor. Unfortunately, the DA, MKP, and the whole lot will not support this budget, but we do. Thus, we call on communities to work together with municipalities and provincial departments to avoid an unlawful occupation of land, because this often breeds several other human settlements amenities challenges such as water, sanitation, clinics, roads, and many more. Honorable Chairperson, to lend dignity to our people, the ANC spearheaded the Prevention of Illegal Eviction from an Unlawful Occupation of Land Act of 1998. Yes, it did. To this end, we support the revival of the amendment of the Prevention of Illegal Eviction from an Unlawful Occupation of Land Bill, Amendment Bill, by the department so as to decisively deal with illegal evictions and unlawful occupation of land. And we do not support attempts that are aimed at duplicating this process. We commend the department for the work done on the 295 out of the 3,445 block projects to ensure value for money, outcomes, and impact in sustaining livelihoods. Honorable Chairperson, members, in this financial year, we expect the department to deliver at least 40,000 units across the country for the benefit of those households that earn less than 3,500, so that they can build themselves homes wherever they choose. As parties in this House, we can facilitate knowledge and understanding in communities with regards to their freedoms, rights, and opportunities by working closely with them to discourage the illegal conduct of land occupation. Honorable members, the Expropriation Act can be used legitimately and credibly to promote order, social and economic development in the human settlement sector. The Housing Development Agency's current financial year year of 43 million and the 137 million for land acquisition over the next 3 years, respectively, will not be sufficient without a meticulous look at what the Expropriation Act can do to complement this disbursement of funds for land acquisition. The African National Congress welcomes the initiative by the department to work closely with SALGA to ensure that communities remain engaged so that much more ingenious, innovative, creative ways can be found as far as the relocation of people where they need to live. Chairperson, as I near conclusion of my speech, I'd like to say the following. In the portfolio committee right in this room, it is noteworthy that the DA did not object to the adoption of the report. However, we know that they've decided to resort to scuttlebutt, slivers of truth, outright canards, and Honorable Mpiti in this room. Honorable Mpiti in this room. Honorable Mpiti in this room raised one unfounded allegation after another against the CEO of the NHFC. The African National Congress will continue to support governance that is clean, that supports all the institutional framework of our Constitution. By the way, it is the African National Congress, before you could taste what it is like to be in government partially at national level, that it is the African National Congress that established all the institutions that fight corruption today. Let no one be subjected to innuendo.
Honorable Ditebe, can you please take a seat? Honorable members, heckling is allowed, but don't drown the speaker. This, I'm still ruling. Honorable BOSA, I'm still speaking. So the room is very small. When you shout, Honorable Dlamini, Honorable BOSA, Honorable Dlamini, Honorable BOSA, I'm still speaking. I'm still speaking. Honorable members, can we allow the speaker to proceed? You may heckle, you can't drown the speaker. Can you proceed, Honorable Ditebe?
Sure will, Chairperson. We have created all these institutions, and only
Honorable
recently...
Ditebe, please take your seat. What is the hand for?
Can the honorable member take a question?
Honorable Ditebe, can you take a question? No. Can you switch off the mic? Thank you. Proceed, Honorable Ditebe.
I don't take questions from people who don't support progress. The Chairperson, the ANC has created all these institutions long before some of these John come-latelys could be part of government. The SIU, the Independent Directorate to Fight Corruption, and we make absolutely no apologies. By the way, it is the PA, the DA's Helen Zille, who objected when the Hawks raided J.P. Smith's offices and declared him innocent. Malusi Boy, your former MMC, is on trial. You never shouted. So let us be very clear. We will always stand on the side. We will always stand on the side of those who fight for justice and against corruption, but do not use it for partisan purposes. Thank you very much.
Honorable Ditebe, your time is up. Your time is up. Thank you very much. Honorable members, what is the hand for?
Chairperson, can you add Honorable Ditebe 10 minutes for saying nothing?
That's a frivolous point of order, Honorable Member. Honorable members, Allow me to go on record on the issue that Honorable Matiase was raising. I draw Honorable Matiase to go to 2023 State of the Nation when the EFF was allocated 20 Honorable Malema and 10 Honorable Shivambu, where Honorable Malema spoke for all the minutes because it's allowed, it's allocated to the party, it's not allocated to the person. Thank you very much. The last speaker will be the Minister of Human Settlement.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chair. Honorable Paul, yes, you stand in front of the dock before the judge when you are charged. I'm not amazed that you don't know this because I'm undergoing trial without charges. You are trying me in the public air because you think it's the only way to degrade the work that I'm doing. Let me remind the Democratic Alliance. One of your public representatives, and I know Honorable Kaukau, you don't know him, Msebenzi Radebe, go and investigate him. A murderer alleged in my sister's case died under the Democratic Alliance, not charged. In 2016, when I had managed to place charges against him, it was only then that the DA suspended him. Even on my calls to get the DA to get a statement of murder against my sister, they didn't. In 2019, 3 years later, he died. 19 years under the Democratic Alliance with no justice. So good. You can find the nearest door to the police station where it matters. You don't even know where the door is. Let me deal with the traditional leaders. Honorable Obaba Ohate, we have engaged extensively on traditional leaders. And I'm going to quote just a few, which I would want us to go back and deal. I said I appreciate the House on Traditional Leaders in KZN. Nkosi Babu Mkhize, Mbumbulu, Babu Mlaba, Kwaximba, Babu Cele, Ezimbokotweni. I can count Babu Hlengwa, Inkosi Ubhengu. Inkosi uNgcobo actually eNanda naseMzinyathi has given us land already for NFHC. Honorable Gamede, good luck. I came into this house, I presented that. They are part of the budget now. MEC Duma is just next to you. We'll take you through. It's not the only province we're targeting. We want to go to Bahafela in the Northwest and we start to continue with that program. Investigation is accountability. We can't be taught that. We actually are the delivery of accountability. And I availed myself for all accountability. Now, if an investigation is being done, and you reported the case, but you can't wait for the investigation to conclude. You now want other thing in between the investigation. I fear I'm going to disappear after this. I mean, really. IPTs, innovative technologies, maybe that's the problem, that's the word I use. It means alternative building materials. It's innovative building technologies. That's how we call it in the department. It is meant to deal with the disasters that are engulfing us, learning, in fact, from what the NHBRC is leading. In one of our centers, a Soshanguv, named by after one of our human settlement stalwarts, Eric Balu. So if you don't have the idea, you can't come and throw stones, but rather come follow through. I agree, Honorable Mesho. We may want to emphasize more on our public education in terms of the programs, including entities that we run. But I found it rather difficult that because there's poor communication, therefore the budget is not accepted. But nonetheless, who am I? Honorable Hadebe, you touched on an important matter as well with regard to making houses and human settlements. Part of our grant allows municipalities to even buy graders for waste collection. Part of our grants allow municipalities to deal with water and waste treatment plants to ensure that there's no sewer that flows down the street in the spirit of creating a human settlement. Our urban grant even allows for development of open spaces, what we will call parks and recreational areas, open gyms for our children, for our communities. I've spoken, Honorable Van Staden, that we will deal with the list of brownfields and greenfields. For example, in Gqeberha, one of the properties we're expropriating as Department of Home and Settlements, 6 of them. They are owned by a man who's sitting somewhere outside the country. They are a menace to society. There's a high level of crimes in that area, and he's enjoying his life, having left the problem here at home. Let me deal with this issue that it's only the Western Cape which budget this. We'll investigate the 600 million. They turned back no less than 200 million in the past financial year, the good deliveries. Yesterday on title deeds, myself and DM handed over a title deed to a 94-year-old here in Bishop Lavis. Why is he there? Forced removal from Goodwood rather. A forced removal from Goodwood. 94-year-old. How we are best in title deeds. Zolibona ngonyaka ozayo.
Uzizweleke nawe bezikhulumela bonke abantu bebhekise kuminister nominister futhi waphendula ebeyisimpendulo kuba abantu. Ya bengithi angilethe le video kuwe wazi ukuthi kuthiwani eParliament. Le ndaba eParliament ibalekile ukuthi siyilandelele ngoba noma yini ekhunywa lapha yayiyazithinta impilo zethu. So ngithe nje angikulethele ubone ukuthi kuthiwani. Yini eyenzakayo, yini engenzeki. Mina nawe ngifuna sidibane kwivideo elandelayo. Ngiyacela ukuzukuphawula kwakho ngalolu daba. Ngiyacela ukuzukuphawula kwakho ngalolu daba. Fisa ukuzwa ukuthi wena uthini. Mina kusekho engizokusho kodwa bengithe nje angiyendlalele le nkulumo yaseParliament ngale siqale ngayo kakhulukazi kaNhlanhla Lux kuze kaLieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi ngoba zombili zinezigaba ezibalekile. Ngiyabonga.